Well, good afternoon, and thank you for watching us live here for Live Impact News on 13 News Now Plus. If you're watching us on YouTube, we appreciate that as well. We're going to start here with some breaking news that just came in out of Washington, D.C. Senate Democrats have voted unanimously to block a package of 6 funding bills that would have funded large portions of the government through the end of September. And that means that a partial government shutdown could still happen here within the coming days. This information just coming down as we take a live look here on the Senate floor. Now, a big portion of the conversation surrounding this spending package is funding for the Department of Homeland Security amidst everything that is happening in Minneapolis with ICE and those 2 shooting deaths that have taken place there in the city just within this month. That bill failed to advance by a vote of 45 to 55. It would have needed 60 votes to proceed. And that also means that there were multiple Republicans who cast votes against the package. This just came in. I haven't had time to look at the exact nature of the voting rolls yet. I'm going to try to do that too here throughout this stream, but I wanted to make sure you got that information. Now, there's still the opportunity for a vote to take place that would move this forward, but for now, that package has failed by a unanimous vote of Senate Democrats. We're going to have much more on that hopefully throughout this stream and on 13 News Now. But for now, let's go ahead and introduce you to the other folks who are in the room with me. I got producer Naya Campbell who's here, and I'm excited because I don't normally get to sit in this seat or stand for the afternoon. It's usually Connor Real, but Naya and I get to kick it together today. And we have meteorologist Hunter Forrest who is here as well. And Hunter, you and I, we were here for the 10 o'clock stream. We were talking about this forecast that Naya has said that she is really looking forward to potentially this weekend. She wants it to snow as much as possible. That's what I heard.
I'm not shocked to hear that from the people's producer, Naya Campbell. That's what Connor likes to call Naya.
The people's producer?
The people's producer.
You are right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, fill us in, Hunter. Are we going to potentially have another snowfall this weekend? Is Naya going to be happy or sad?
I think she's going to be pretty happy.
Okay.
But it's also going to be very, very windy. So it's like, yeah, you're going to see some snow, but it's going to be very uncomfortable outside, especially Sunday morning. You know, gusts are going to be 30, 40, up to 50 miles an hour, plus closer to the coast, especially down in the Outer Banks. So it's going to be feeling absolutely frigid. You're going to have snow blowing in your face because it's going to be light, fluffy snow. So it's not going to be very comfortable outside. But, you know, if you just bundle up right, you should be fine. But
Okay.
we do have a coastal storm forming off the coast heading into this upcoming weekend. Could be a pretty strong coastal low as well. That's why we have the potential to see those really strong wind gusts, especially at the coast, 50 to 60 miles an hour. Tidal flooding, again, not out of the question, and even some accumulating plowable snow. Now, we do have winter storm watches in effect for the entire area. This went into effect this morning, but this goes through Friday night into Sunday afternoon. So all of Hampton Roads under this winter storm watch. A good chunk of Virginia, so pretty much everyone in Virginia except Northern Virginia. And then the entire state of North Carolina is under a winter storm watch and even winter storm warnings way out west. The entire state of South Carolina is under a winter storm watch, and down into eastern Georgia under winter storm watches as well. So Eugene and I, we were talking earlier this morning about how the last storm last weekend, all of these warnings and watches stretched out for 2,000 miles, but not this time. That's pretty much it. Just our area seeing these winter storm watches and warnings. So let's take a look here at this upcoming weekend. Saturday, we see snow developing. Could see a few flakes early Friday or late Friday, but nothing really substantial. But as we head into Saturday morning, we're going to see snow developing, temperatures in the upper 20s to right around 30 degrees. And then as we head into Sunday, we really start to see that wind picking up, late Saturday into early Sunday morning. Looking like it's going to be a mainly snow event for us. Except down into the Outer Banks, could see some mixing at first. Could see a little bit of rain, maybe some wintry mix, but then eventually we'll see a transition on all over to snow by the second half or by the time we get into late Saturday, early Sunday. Gusty winds, 50 plus miles an hour. And then again, the potential to see some tidal flooding as well. Here's a look at the futurecast. Again, a few flakes Friday, but then you'll notice heading into Saturday morning, some snow showers, heavier further down to the south and west, seeing some rain into the Outer Banks. By the afternoon, seeing the snow really filling in for a lot of us. We could see a few breaks here and there. We could see some drier air trying to filter in, so it may not be snowing constantly all day on Saturday. You may see a few breaks, but eventually you'll see it coming on back. Still seeing some snow for most of the area, but rain down into the Outer Banks. But you'll notice that transition early Sunday morning into snow for everybody, especially heavier snow down by the Outer Banks. This is Sunday morning. And then by the late morning and early afternoon, we start to see it taper off and we start to improve. But here's a look at some of the snow potentials. The GFS and the Euro, we've showed these before. The latest GFS model is down for parts of the south side and off north. But the Euro is still pretty high in those totals, between about 5 and 8 to 9 inches for most of us, more down into eastern North Carolina in a few spots. But the GFS is also saying that eastern North Carolina could get in on those higher snow totals. Looking like they'll see heavier snow and snow for a longer period of time. So that's why they'll pick up on the higher snow totals likely and less further off towards the north. Tappahannock won't see as much. Same around West Point. Even, Newport News will likely not see as much as areas in eastern North Carolina, which that's normally not the case, but that's what it's looking like as we head into this upcoming weekend. But we also have to watch out for those very gusty winds, especially, late Saturday into early Sunday morning. 40 to 50 mile per hour gusts, even higher than that around the Outer Banks. You'll see Hatteras at 8 o'clock in the morning. Could see gusts up to 60 miles an hour. So some isolated power outages, certainly not out of the question with this system, especially as we get into early Sunday.
Let me ask you this real quick, Hunter, because obviously this is for us here in Hampton Roads. And I'm asking this question as I am watching Governor Josh Stein in North Carolina. He is currently talking to people in North Carolina who are first responders, portions of North Carolina Department of Transportation, thanking those crews for what they did just over this past weekend. We're also expected to get an update from him momentarily on what they're doing to prepare for this weekend. For those viewers in our area and those in North Carolina, what could it potentially look like for them more specifically in terms of the next few days?
Luckily, we still have a few days to prepare for the system that's heading our way. We're going to stay dry through today into tomorrow. And then, again, as we head into Saturday, luckily, it's just going to be mainly a snow event for a lot of us. We shouldn't be worried about ice. Some of us could maybe see a little bit of sleet down into the Outer Banks and some rain as well, but that's really about it. We're not expecting to see, ice-covered roads or trees, even though some roads are still covered with ice from the last storm. Luckily, we're not going to see ice on top of that. Also, the good thing is that the snow is going to be pretty fluffy. You're not going to be seeing, heavy, wet snow coming down, so it'll be a lot easier to shovel and get rid of. So that's also another good thing. So it's not going to be as difficult to kind of get rid of that snowfall if you see a good amount. You'd rather shovel a foot of light, fluffy snow than 6 inches of heavy, wet snow.
Yeah, I mean, if you've dealt with snow in the past, I mean, been in areas where it snows often, I know you are from Connecticut. I spent a decade in Illinois,
Yeah.
and we both have experience when it comes to shoveling out snow, moving around in it, and the different types of snow and what that can mean. Naya, I only left you out because I know you grew up in Florida, and so a little bit of a different scenario if you're growing up in Florida. Although they had a really nice amount of snow, last week?
Last week?
Last week?
Did they?
Last week, what parts?
I can't remember what
there
part.
was
maybe
some
a week and a half ago.
there was
there
some
was a snow event
snow
that hit portions of Florida.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a dusting
Yeah.
in the panhandle.
Yeah.
I don't think Jacksonville saw any snow.
Couldn't have. 'Cause I would have heard it.
she would have got all kinds of texts
I
and
would
those
have.
kind of things.
But there could be some flakes flying around this weekend in Jacksonville, and even as far south as Tampa.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not just us that's going to be cold. Some parts of Miami, will see temperatures in the mid to upper 30s.
Okay.
Actual air temperatures, and they haven't seen that in a lot years.
Oh,
I mean, that's the reason why you moved to Miami, right?
Right.
Or you moved to Florida, so
Yeah.
that you don't see any of those things, period.
Yeah.
My little sister has already been complaining in Tallahassee, so.
Oof.
can
I
only
mean, it
imagine.
gets cold in Tallahassee.
It does, but I just be like, girl. That is nothing. And she hates when I say that. She's like, it's not a competition.
But I mean, even Tallahassee, these upcoming days, wind chills, I believe, are going to be in the teens, maybe even single digits close. So
Watch out for those falling iguanas down there in Florida.
Oh, my God.
Hey, it's a real watch. They got to put out the
That's
frozen
true.
iguana watch,
They
right?
do.
Because they get frozen or they freeze
They get stunned.
and they get stunned and then they fall out
Isn't
of the
that
trees.
South Florida, though?
yes,
I've
Florida
never
is
dealt
Florida
with that in
to
North
me.
Florida.
yeah. I don't think there's that many iguanas up in North Florida.
Not an
Not at
iguana
all.
expert. I will be honest with
That's
you on
okay.
that. But I just know somewhere in Florida, those iguanas fall from the sky.
They'll be falling
gotta
this
be ready.
weekend. That's for
They'll be
sure.
falling this weekend. Oh, man. Okay. And the iguanas, they're okay, everybody. You just leave them alone. Don't
Yeah.
touch them. Just let them be. They'll thaw out and they'll come back.
Right.
We're not laughing at the expense of any iguanas, I
No.
promise. But, Hunter, I thought one thing that was really cool that you were talking about earlier today is the process that you all have to kind of take in navigating these forecasts. Because I think with the last storm, a lot of people really had questions on how do you all manage, something that at the beginning of the week had a huge amount, like the different models were just so incredible. They were so interesting. How do you manage any of the changes and trying to figure out how things are going to land, days later? Because even with this, like the way in which we're talking about it, obviously it's a different type of storm. So how do you all kind of navigate that in your own models, in your own forecasting?
Yeah, it depends on, a lot of the confidence. The forecast models, are they in agreement with each other? Are they in, big disagreements and totals and timing and things like that? Last week, the models, like you were saying, last week with the system that came through, the week before that, or maybe 5 days or so, they were spewing out, 2 feet of snow. And we knew that really wasn't going to be the case. But, the day after they corrected, and it kind of stayed that way through the week and into the actual storm time. This week, the models have been, a little bit more inconsistent. The placement of this low is very important. If it's closer to the coast or goes right over us, we see more rain and mix and less snow. If it's just off the coast, it's like the Goldilocks zone, so we see more snow. And then if it's even further off the coast, you just see the fringe effects of the system. Still a little bit breezy, maybe a little bit of snow, but not that much. And then it moves on out of here. So, just, a 50-mile wobble in this low could make a big, big difference. So once this actually starts to develop, of course, we'll have a better, idea on it. But models have been consistent that we are going to see snow, especially down into eastern North Carolina. Confidence is high there that they'll see, a good amount, and then it'll be less the further north you go. But we really look at every single type of model. We discuss what we think the snow total should be once we put out, our actual snow map. We haven't put out an official one yet, likely will later on today. But for the first couple of days, you just look at, each individual model, the GFS, the Euro, Canadian NAM once you get a little bit closer. And you just kind of see if there are trends.
Yeah.
Are they trending higher, the snow totals? Are they trending lower? Are they trending higher in a certain area? And they certainly have been, eastern North Carolina.
And, you mentioned North Carolina. I think that's a really good segue right now because I'm looking at it. It does look like Governor Josh Stein has just stepped up to the podium speaking on, I imagine, what they are doing to prepare for the storm that you're talking about right now. Let's see if we can listen in. Again, he probably just began speaking maybe 20 seconds ago.
Because they know that the state needs our road system, and they're the ones who are going to keep those roads safe and keep people. We don't believe we had any traffic fatalities last week because of the storm. In a state of 11 million people, that is remarkable, and it's a testament to their hard work to clear the roads. It's a testament to the Highway Patrol making sure that the roads were clear of abandoned vehicles and being on the roads. Testament of the National Guard. I saw a great video of them getting trucks out of the median. These folks care deeply about their work and making sure that people are safe. And then finally, it's a testament to people staying home. And we're lucky that this is going to hit us on the weekend, so there will be less traffic. If you can stay home on Friday night, do it.
What's different about preparing for this compared to last week as far as, I guess, roads in particular, and just we're not expecting long-term power outages like we were a week ago?
Yeah. The main difference is we were expecting sleet and freezing rain last week. This week we're expecting snow. That means that we think that there will be fewer power outages, or the risk of power outages are less. That doesn't mean that there will not be power outages. There certainly, almost surely will be power outages, but it won't be in the entirety of a region. It'll be in more specific locations. These guys are going to have to still work hard to clear the roads. It's going to be coming. It's going to be windy. They're going to be out there plowing, and for them, it's going to be very much the same. For us, we're hoping that power outages are a smaller part of the story.
Is supply impacted at all as far as road treatments because this is coming right after another storm?
No, that was a question I just asked them. Do they feel like they have enough salt? Do they have enough sand? And they feel very confident in the amount of supplies that they have.
Obviously, the kids have been out of school. We've had a couple of virtual days, and I know they're happy, but their parents aren't necessarily as excited. Are you guys anticipating that the districts will probably have some snow days, and will the parents have to do any makeup days later in the year?
Yeah, I can't speak for the details of each school system's calendar, but I can tell you that we're very likely going to get hit by a lot of snow. It's going to be very cold next week, which means that it's going to stick around. I fully anticipate for families to be impacted for a few days. One good thing is we hope that this is snow and not ice. It's not sleet. It's not freezing rain. So use this as an opportunity to remind yourself how to sled.
Colder temperatures, obviously, if it gets any colder, it could maybe nullify the effects of the brine that we always hear about, the impacts. I mean, what strategies are you hoping to hear from the folks here today about how they're going to combat the continuous cold?
Well, they're already applying brine today. They like to do it within 48 hours of the expected storm, which we think is going to be hitting Friday night. So they're going to be working really hard tomorrow. So to the extent folks don't need to drive tomorrow, don't drive tomorrow, so that these guys can do the prep work that they need to do. They're going to be immediately ready to bring their plows out come Friday night into Saturday.
How would a partial shutdown affect operations of the stakes or school with the
Yeah, in terms of the federal government. Yeah. Look, the federal government needs to operate. They need to have a budget. We need the support of FEMA to help recover in Western North Carolina. The public assistance reimbursements need to come through. The hazard mitigation programs that help us build resilience into our infrastructure for the next storm, that needs to come through. There's absolutely no reason why you cannot have basic accountability for ICE, not for Immigration Customs Enforcement, Border Patrol. They can wear body cams. They can have their name on their uniform. They do not have to wear masks. They can have relationships with state and local where they're informing them of what their actions are. These things are basic measures of accountability and good law enforcement. They can do those things and keep the government open. They need to keep the government open.
Governor, where are you guys more concerned about the effects of this storm coming into this weekend? Are there particular concerns along the coast as well?
Yeah, it is on the east side. The last storm came in from the west. This storm's coming in from the east. We expect to have greater concentrations of snow east rather than the mountains. It's kind of backwards from what most people expect. There is also concern about overwash from tides on the Outer Banks, and so people on the Outer Banks need to be aware and be careful. So these guys are spread out around the state. They know how to handle these kind of storms, and they're ready to help the people of North Carolina get through this.
Are you anticipating declaring another state of emergency going into this storm?
Yes, in fact, right now I've just declared a state of emergency for this storm, separate from the one that we had last week. It helps us to mobilize our state emergency management team. It also helps prepare us in case we need federal assistance from FEMA down the road to have declared an emergency for this storm.
How have your communications been with the White House from last week's storm and go into this week's storm?
Last week, the White House and the administration was very responsive. I heard from the Coast Guard. I heard from the White House. They wanted to make sure that we had what we needed. I asked the president for a declaration of a storm declaration, and they granted it within a day. Very responsive. So I was pleased with that, and we hope that whatever needs we have of the federal government with this storm, they're equally as responsive.
One of the other questions you were asking down there in front of the brine was about the capabilities for the state to allocate resources locally as well. That was some of the concerns we heard from people out and about over the weekend. Just a lot of the major highways, NCDOT did a great job clearing, but a lot of the local side roads that people in front of their homes, they were still covered Sunday going into Monday. What message do you have to North Carolinians that they can safely get out and about after the storm on their local roads in their towns and cities across the state?
Well, these guys have to prioritize the interstates first, and then the major state roads second, and then they can get into the secondary roads later. And we wish after a big storm that it could be within 24 hours. That's just not the way the world works. So we ask people to be patient, to understand that it's better to not be on the roads if you possibly cannot be. If you have to be on the roads, give a lot of distance to the car in front of you. Go slower. We want people to be safe. We want them to get through, and we want them to get back to their normal life as quickly as they possibly can, but we have to be reasonable as well.
Do you anticipate requesting another federal emergency declaration? Or is it going to carry over?
We would have to request a separate federal emergency declaration for this storm. We don't know yet if we're going to need to do that.
Did you use it for this past one?
At this point, we're considering whether we need to expand it to cover more expenses that were incurred. So we got the declaration. That does not mean that we're going to get the funding request that we need. We will be looking at that in the coming days.
What are the gaps
In what sense?
So you said you need to expand it to look at some other expenses.
Yeah. Will, why don't you come forward and explain what you were telling me earlier?
Yes, sir. So the declaration that we received last week for that event was in the federal terms it was not a major disaster declaration. It was an emergency declaration. And what that did, based on the governor's request, was give us access to federal resources if we would need them for that event. What the governor mentioned is we are going to look at, like some of the other states that were impacted by that significant ice event have done recently, do we need to take a look at an expansion of that request to potentially be able to support state and local governments that expended a significant amount of cost in the response phase? I think we're going to take a look at that over the next couple of days, and again, may have some movement there. I think we're going to continue to evaluate what may be needed for this particular event, and certainly make the appropriate recommendations up on any steps that could be taken.
Final question.
What role does the National Guard play in supporting the efforts of all these local entities?
They deploy all across the state to be responsive to whatever the needs are. For instance, there were some trucks that ran off the highway last week, and they brought their huge military trucks out to help pull them out. General Hunt, why don't you come forward and talk about the role of the National Guard?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. First, I want to thank the National Guardsmen who are out there, who've left their homes of warmth and safety to support the citizens of North Carolina. But our main focus and our main mission is the protection of life and property of the citizens of North Carolina. And we do that with working with the Department of Transportation and the North Carolina Highway Patrol as a team. And we'll go as a group, and like the governor said, we pulled out multiple vehicles last week in the mountains that have very difficult terrain. We pulled vehicles out, trucks out, commercial vehicles with our equipment. So that's our major role, is partnering with our other two agencies here. Thank you. I'm sorry?
Are we all prepared for anything out in the coast this weekend?
Oh, yes, sir. It's a statewide event last week, so we're just shuffling some resources around to the middle part of the state and the eastern part of the state right now as we talk.
I have a question for DOT.
Thank you.
Once the storm actually gets here, how are the plows deployed out there? Will they be out while the snow is falling, or do you wait until the event is over for them to get out and clear the snow?
Well, we'll start responding throughout the storm, kind of assessing, where the hot spots are and where we need to deploy resources. But we won't wait until all the snowflakes have fallen before we start responding to the storm.
Thank you.
My final comment is just, as folks out there are seeing these crews out there working hard, when they see law enforcement out in the community, when they see the National Guard deployed, just say words of thanks, because if we're lucky, we're at home where it's warm. These folks are out on the streets trying to make sure that everything is safe for us when we have to go out and about. And so we just owe them all a really big debt of gratitude. Thank you.
And there you have it. That's North Carolina Governor Josh Stein delivering remarks about their preparations for the pending storm coming here in the next few days, as our meteorologists have been tracking the possibility for snow in our region, and also another round of snow that North Carolina and their staff could experience as well. He was also talking about, a thanks to their staff and team for all the work of the last few days with this last round just last weekend, and how they saw the impacts of that work and preparations kind of help them there in North Carolina. North Carolina, no stranger to storms of multiple kinds that have really kind of impacted the state over the last few years. So certainly they're taking every single opportunity seriously when it comes to preparations there. We're going to take a quick break. Give us about 4 minutes or so. We'll have much more on the other side here on Live Impact News. Thanks for sticking with us here on Live Impact News. At the top of the stream, I brought you breaking news that Democrats had unanimously denied that spending package for the government to continue to be funded. And so it appears that right now that package has failed 45 to 55. It's still not dead in the water just yet. Senate Majority Leader Thune can bring it back for a vote either later today or tomorrow. There have been indications that the two sides, Republicans and Democrats, are able to possibly get close to a deal to at least get some of that package forward. The part, though, that is a sticking point right now for Democrats is the spending for DHS, Department of Homeland Security. This package, would have included more funding for DHS. And of those who voted no are both Virginia Senators, Mark Warner and Tim Kaine. Mark Warner just releasing a statement moments ago saying that I just voted no on the spending package because it still includes DHS funding, no blank check for ICE to continue lawless killings. Let's get real changes made. That's from Mark Warner. Now, on the North Carolina side, we see Republican Ted Budd actually was one of the Republicans who, along with Democrats, voted no on this spending package. Some of the others include Rand Paul from Kentucky and even Tommy Tuberville from Alabama and Thune himself from South Dakota. So there are several Republicans who also said no on this spending package. Again, that does not mean that it is dead in the water. It just means that they are able now within the next day or so to work through this and see if there's an ability for them to come to some kind of agreement to pass something for this spending bill that would extend the government funding through September. If not done by tomorrow, we could face another government shutdown of some sort after the latest, which also was the longest in American history, that we wrapped up just at the end of last year. Republicans need 7 Democrats in total, at least, to pass this spending measure. They need 60 votes right now. They only have 45. Now, earlier today, we did record the moment that Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer spoke on the Senate floor. As you take a live look there at both D.C. and the Senate floor, we're going to go ahead and play his comments. This was ahead of the first vote that took place today, in which he talked about this and also his frustrations with some of the things that have happened with immigration enforcement across the country.
This morning in Minneapolis, Tom Homan,
Okay, give us 1 second. Every once in a while, we'll pull a clip in and it will freeze, and then we just have to re-cue it and all those kind of things. Give us a quick moment to bring it back into the fold, and we will play that for you. So, again, this was before the vote was taking place today. This is not in response to the vote. This is before. This is Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Let's go ahead and try it again.
this morning in Minneapolis, Tom Homan, Donald Trump's border czar, held a press conference. He didn't say much of significance, but he did say one thing that was important. Here's what Homan said, quote, "For the people out there who don't like what ICE is doing, if you want certain laws reformed, then take it up with Congress." For the people out there, Homan said, who don't like what ICE is doing, if you want certain laws reformed, then take it up with Congress. I don't agree very much with Mr. Homan, and he's certainly not my choice for someone to lower the temperature in Minneapolis. But he's right in saying the epicenter of change has to be Congress, not the executive branch. And change is desperately needed because the images of masked men beating up people in the streets and shooting American citizens in broad daylight have shocked the conscience. Alex was holding his hand up. He had one hand up and another hand holding, I believe it was, a radio. And they shot him. Many times. It made every American recoil to see that our law enforcement is doing that to our citizens. Confounding. Does not look like America, these pictures. Oh no. And it's been unleashed by Donald Trump and the people under him. Noam, who should be out of there. Thank God they got rid of Bongino. His face, when you saw him, he looked like he was grimacing like a thug. This has got to stop. Congress must step up to the plate. The Republican majority must step up to the plate. Republicans in Congress cannot allow this violent status quo to continue. They must work with Democrats on legislation, real legislation, strong legislation, to rein ICE in. Let me be clear. Democrats are ready to pass 5 bipartisan funding bills in the Senate. We're ready to pass them today. We're ready to fund 96% of the federal government today. But the DHS bill still needs a lot of work. So after meeting yesterday as a caucus, Senate Democrats are united on 3 main goals that will rein in ICE and end the violence. Rein in ICE and end the violence. First, end the roving patrols. Second, enforce accountability. Third, masks off, body cameras on. Each officer must have visible ID. Now, no one thinks we're going to solve every single problem in one fell swoop, but the American people are demanding that something gets done, and of course, to pass legislation and enshrine this into law, we need our Republican colleagues to come along with us. So again, first, we need to end ICE's indiscriminate patrols. We need to tighten the rules governing the use of warrants. ICE needs to stop the mass chaotic patrols. They need to work with state law enforcement, local law enforcement, not against them. That means no more ICE agents barging into people's homes without a judicial warrant. When does that ever happen in America? It's a flagrant violation of the Fourth Amendment. It also means stopping the dragnet harassment of American communities. Second, we need accountability. ICE needs to be held to the same basic standards as any law enforcement agency in the country. We need a uniform code of conduct for ICE and all federal agents, just like state and local law enforcement have. If they violate these standards, like in the instances of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, they must be held fully accountable. And we need independent investigations, not ICE investigating itself. ICE, the leadership of which is a bunch of liars. We don't trust them to do the investigation. Most Americans might be shocked to learn that these basic rules do not apply right now to federal agents like ICE. It's the kind of thing most people would just assume is already in place because it's so obvious. But that's not true when it comes to ICE. They are operating effectively outside the law, and a small glimpse of a video taken by a bystanding citizen shows it every day, every minute. You see these videos again, you recoil. It's not America. It's thugs roaming our streets. Third, we need the masks to come off and we need the body cameras to stay on. No more secret police. Masks must come off and body cameras must stay on. Agents need to carry clear identification. The public deserves transparency, as it always has asked for with law enforcement. These 3, ending the roving patrols, enforcing accountability, masks off, cameras on, are common sense reforms. They are reforms that Americans already expect from law enforcement. Now, the onus now is on Leader Thune and Senate Republicans to work with Democrats to turn these goals into legislation. They are in the majority, the Republicans are. They're the ones who have responsibility to govern, and Democrats are ready to come to the table. If Republicans refuse to work with us to rein in ICE and to end the violence, they're telling the American people they're choosing to protect ICE over choosing to protect people's safety. Americans, by and large, support law enforcement. I do. And most people support border security. I do as well. But Americans do not support ICE terrorizing our streets, operating outside the law, killing American citizens. The madness and violence must end. Congress must act to rein in ICE and end the violence. Rein in ICE and end the violence. The American people deserve nothing less. I yield the floor.
Okay, you just heard the comments there from Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer there earlier today before they cast that vote that ultimately did not pass the government funding bill. Again, 45 to 55, Democrats unanimously going against it. Their major issue, as you heard him say, was DHS, that bill including more funding for the Department of Homeland Security, and them having an issue with what we are seeing out of Minneapolis and other states with the immigration enforcement efforts by Homeland Security. But I will point to one thing he said at the very beginning of his statements. He talked about a press conference hearing from border czar Tom Homan, who has now been sent by the Trump administration to kind of soothe the relations and bring down tensions in Minnesota. Met with state and city leaders in that area yesterday and today. They began talking about what are some measures that can be done to kind of bring down the temperature. And Schumer categorized or described what Homan said earlier as nothing real of substance. I'll push back on that and say that's not true. We did get some things out of that press conference that I felt were fairly newsworthy. We are going to show you a bit of that as well. But let's go ahead, Naya, take a quick break. I know we got to get to that. On the other side of this, I want you to hear from border czar Tom Homan about what they discussed with state and city officials and now hinting at their plans moving forward when it comes to immigration enforcement there within the state. Okay, I said on the other side of that break, again, thanks for sticking with us here for Live Impact News. I'm Eugene Daniel, joined by producer Naya Campbell on the other side. She is manning the ones and twos. I hear she's called the people's producer. Love that nickname for her. But I told you on the other side of this that we had listened in on Border Czar Tom Homan's remarks to reporters, speaking for the first time since he went to Minnesota to meet with Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey about what has been going on there in that community. We now have 2 shooting deaths connected to ICE agents at the hands of ICE agents, and another shooting connected to them as well. That individual did not pass. They are still alive. But that has certainly raised the tensions, not only there in Minnesota, but across the country. And now we see the impact that it's even having on the Senate floor. But Chuck Schumer said that we didn't learn anything, that there was nothing of real substance that came out of Homan's speech today. I would push back on that, and we'll let you listen for yourself. We have recorded his remarks in which he talks about how there is going to be a real drawdown when it comes to that operation there in Minnesota. However, they're not going to stop the mission. His tone, I want you to take into account, and then also some of the questions and how he answered in regards to how those conversations went with the state and city leaders. So without further ado, this is Tom Homan speaking earlier today about the state of talks there in Minnesota.
So God bless this great nation. God bless Minnesota. We can do better. And I think your local and state leaders meeting with me, we made some significant gains, significant coordination and cooperation, and you're going to see some massive changes occurring here in this city. Thank you.
Mr. Rules of Engagement on. Right here. Thank you so much, Mr. Homan. Giovanna Delorto with the Associated Press. Based on how you have described these changes in the mission, can you be more specific about the objectives of Operation Metro Surge? If what you have described changes the parameters for interior enforcement only in Minnesota or also in Maine and other places? And finally, when will you consider that those objectives will be achieved and this operation will end? Or is it in terms of agents on the ground, in terms of who you are targeting for arrests?
The withdrawal of law enforcement resources here is dependent upon cooperation. Like I said, one agent arresting one bad guy in the jail means less agents on the street. We have some agreements. We got more to talk about how we're going to implement those agreements. But as we see that cooperation happen, then the redeployment will happen. Look, target enforcement operations should happen across the nation. That's what we've done for decades. And with target enforcement operations, I've done many of them. It just makes it safer for everybody. When we know exactly what we're looking for, what is his criminal history, what is his immigration history, where does he live, is he in an apartment complex versus a house, has he got a known record for having weapons, it's safer for everybody. Then we know what type of resources we need to go. And it just makes this operation cleaner, more efficient, and it's proven less violence when we know exactly what we're getting into and we can take the necessary precautions to keep everybody safe. Some of the operations that I've been involved in, we know there's children in the house based on surveillance. So we know you got to be a little bit different when you go in that house because there's going to be children present. So target enforcement operations, the way we've always done it, I think we got away from a little bit. And we're going to make sure we do target enforcement operations. And look, and I will say it again, we are not surrendering our mission at all. We're just doing it smarter.
Shimon Prokopez from CNN. Mr. Homan, how did we get here in terms of you had Greg Bovino, who was the face of this immigration operation, the mission, as you say, to having border patrol agents in the interior of this country stopping U.S. citizens, asking them for ID, creating this fear in places like Chicago and now here. And then finally, it took really the death of Alex Petty for us to get here. How did that happen? who made the decisions to allow this kind of operation to proceed in this way and to create such fear?
Well, look, the Border Patrol, last 4 years under Joe Biden, we had an open border where 10, 12,000 people a day are coming across the border. Border Patrol got overwhelmed, which means we sent thousands of ICE agents down there to help deal with that humanitarian crisis, to help secure the border. Now we have millions of people released in this nation, many unvetted. Now we got to find them. Before the big, beautiful bill, we had a total just under 5,000 deportation officers to look for millions of people, many in public safety threats. So yes, we needed Border Patrol to come and help on our mission now. And the reason for the massive deployment is because of the threats, because of the violence. Our officers need to be protected. If I'm on an operation, an arrest team, I'm going to a house, I got to be busy with that guy, the dangerous guy, and I can't keep looking over my shoulder at what's happening outside the house. So we brought extra resources in to provide that security. And as I said, as we drill down on these great agreements we got and this great understanding we have means less. So we can draw down those resources. When the violence decreases, we can draw down those resources. But based on the discussions I've had with the governor and the AG, we can start drawing down those resources as far as those looking for public safety threats being released, and do it in the jail with much less people. So the drawdown is going to happen based on these agreements. But the drawdown can happen even more if the hateful rhetoric and the impediment and interference will stop. So Border Patrol, I was a Border Patrol agent. These men and women are patriots. God bless them. They're here to help us. And the drawdown will come soon, depending on when this actually, I see this in play. But the agreements to have alone is going to cause a significant drawdown. So you're going to see a drawdown.
Just on a personal,
Go ahead, Ben.
you've been doing this
Ben,
for
go
40
ahead.
years. Just
Tom
a
Homan.
follow-up.
Ben, go ahead. No.
First off, Ben Burkbaum, Real America's Voice News. On behalf of the American people, I just want to say thank you to you and to all of the agents that are putting their lives on the line to go after the people that were allowed in the last administration. We watched that happen in the media, the honest media, covered up by many of the media that are behind me. We want to say thank you, and to all the men and women that are out there. Can you talk to us about what's being done with the leadership on these signal chats, on these WhatsApp chats that are organizing the attacks against you, the obstruction against you? Are we going to be arresting those individuals as well? And to the folks out there in America that voted for this, that want mass deportations because they saw a mass invasion under Joe Biden, what would you say to them? How are we going to get to that point?
Well, first of all, about the organization and the funding of the attacks on ICE. I'm not going to answer a lot about that because I'm not going to show our hand, but they'll be held accountable. Justice is coming. Again, we got to all remember why the questions from CNN, why are we here? What started this? 4 years of an open border, where millions of people are in this country unvetted. Remember, let's not forget, for 4 years we were told the border was secure. 4 years we were told the border was secure, and we all knew it wasn't. And I want this to be a positive thing we're doing here today. I also want to remember the politicians are continually attacking us. Where were they the last 4 years when the number of women and children sex trafficking went all-time high? Where were they when 250,000 Americans died from fentanyl coming across the border? Where were they when women and children are dying making that journey? Where were they when over 4,000 aliens making that journey died, historic record? Where were they? Not a word. Now we're just trying to respond to what happened the last 4 years and keeping this country safe. And we're arresting a lot of public safety threats, take them off the streets, which make this country safer. President Trump promised to make this country safe again, and that's what we're doing. But my 2.5 days up here, we made a lot of progress. I think everybody agrees on the criminal and public safety threats. They agree it's much safer and easier to arrest an alien in a facility than send a whole team out in the field that's going to draw anger because now we got to send a bunch of people to do something that could have been done by one or two people. And I've said this for years. I have no ill will to anybody in Minnesota. All the people I talk to, we're never going to agree on everything. We have different philosophies and different opinions on immigration, but we all agree this is a way to go to reduce safety, reduce crime, reduce crime and increase safety for our operations. More people in the jail means less people on the street. It's simple math.
Sir, Lana Zach, CBS.
Okay, we're going to come out of that. You get a sense of the tone and direction in which he was going. I will say one of the things that he said within this was that, hey, there will be a real drawdown, but we're not stopping the mission, just going about it smarter. He was about to get into that in his statements there. Again, that after he met with state and city leaders on solutions to keep moving forward, but to bring down the temperature to keep everyone safe. And one of the people that Homan met with is the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey. Reason why we're coming out of that pre-recorded presser with Homan is because Frey has now stepped to the podium. This is in Washington, D.C. He's speaking at a conference of mayors across the country. We expect he's going to be having a lot to talk about what's going on in his city. So let's go ahead and listen to Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey.
Officers and somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 federal agents, ICE, and Border Patrol. People have been indiscriminately pulled off the street. Discrimination takes place only on the basis of are you Somali, are you Latino, or are you Southeast Asian? And then American citizens have been yanked away from their homes after that solely because they look like they are from Mexico or Ecuador or Somalia. That's not how we operate in America. In America, we have these foundational principles of law. We abide by our Constitution. The rule of law is not just something that you say, but it is something that we practice each and every day. And as mayors, we know that. As mayors, we operate in the reality business. It is a reality that we've got to keep people safe on a daily basis. And by the way, we do that, partnering with a number of different jurisdictions, working with our federal government. In Minneapolis, we've worked extensively with the ATF, the FBI, and the DEA, the U.S. Attorney's Office to successfully drive down crime. And despite what you may hear on different media channels, crime is down in virtually every category and virtually every neighborhood of Minneapolis. Minneapolis is a safe city. It is less safe when chaos reigns supreme. It is less safe when families do not feel comfortable going to school or buying food at the grocery store because they're worried that their very family might get ripped apart. It is less safe when we have roving bands of agents marching down the streets just looking for somebody who might be concerned. And I gotta tell you, everybody is concerned when you have that kind of occupation. And so we've been very clear. The Operation Metro Surge needs to end. This kind of conduct and siege needs to stop, not just in Minneapolis. It needs to stop nationwide. What's become clear to me is this is obviously not about safety. This is not even about immigration. This is about silencing a narrative or a political position that differs from that of a federal administration. We've seen this kind of conduct in other countries. We cannot see it right here in America. This is not a Democratic or a Republican issue. Never once have I made this partisan. This is a foundational principle of making sure that the endurance of our republic can continue on. It may seem like I'm talking too much on the macro level, or maybe this is a concerning thing to say, but I got to tell you, we're seeing it in our streets right now. And it is up to each and every one of us to partner together, to work together, to protect those ideals that we hold firm.
The power of the federal government is awesome. The military force that they have, they got tanks, they got bazookas. They can lay siege on American cities with thousands of agents and even troops, far outnumbering that of local police department. In Minneapolis, we've heard them say that they will end this siege when we hand over voter rolls. We've seen them attack and invade not just with this occupation, but also with the Department of Justice being used as a weapon. They're investigating me and several other local elected officials, not because we've done something wrong, but because we have exhibited one of the core responsibilities that both I and you have as mayors. And that is the core and foundational responsibility to speak on behalf of your constituents. I'm going to continue to speak on behalf of my constituents. We won't be intimidated in Minneapolis, and if there is any place to take inspiration from, don't take it from me. Take it from the 435,000 Minneapolis residents that call our great city home and the many more that come and go. Take it from the tens of thousands of people that have stood up and peacefully protested to say we love our neighbor, we care about our collective family, and we're going to do everything possible to keep them safe. Take inspiration from the people that are dropping their neighbors off to the grocery store or standing guard outside a daycare to make sure that their families don't get ripped apart. Take it from the countless people that are exhibiting this foundational love of both city and, importantly, country. This is an opportunity to be a patriot, to stand up for the kinds of liberties and freedoms that we all hold dear. As a nation of immigrants, it should not matter where you are from. We rise based on our own merit. We fall based on our own flaws. Whole communities are not held accountable for the actions of a few. In America, we've got that kind of due process. We got to stand by that due process where you actually have rights. Those rights are exhibited in the form of a court system. And the battlefield that we need to be operating on is that court system right now. Look, in cities, we have laws that we abide by. We have work that we need to do. And the reality is you can't exercise the extraordinary power that the federal government has to force nationwide outcomes on localized issues, leaving our own citizens as collateral damage in a hostile negotiation. By their own words, what we've seen this administration push for is this whole concept that might makes right. That might makes right. Stephen Miller has pushed for this concept, calling it the iron law of the world. That might makes right. Stephen Miller is wrong. Time and again, America has rejected the law of the jungle. Time and again, America has rejected this notion that might makes right. That notion and that belief that we are of something greater than simply force has allowed our country to rise in international influence and allowed great cities to be laboratories of democracy. We must reject the notion that might makes right again and again. We must understand that it is not the clash of iron that furthers the notions of democracy, but it is the intense battle of ideas. Might does not make right. In cities, we all recognize that ideas make right. And so, from Portland, Maine, to Portland Avenue in Minneapolis, to Portland, Oregon, Mayors, we do not back down to bullies. We stand up for democracy. We understand that the common ideals that we hold are essential to the endurance of our great republic. This may not have been a battle that we signed up for. Each and every one of us entered public service for a different reason. Some of us entered to keep our cities safe. Some of us entered because we love to build affordable housing. Some of us entered because we care about climate. But now is also a moment where we all got to stand together. You have this unique relationship with the American electorate. This is more important than being a Democrat or a Republican. This has to do with our day-to-day lives, who we are as a people, who we are as a democracy, and who we can be as American citizens. Mayors have that important role. I know that you will carry it out, and I cannot be prouder to be part of this tremendous team. And so, on behalf of all of these incredible Minneapolis residents that are going through a very difficult time right now, to say the least, thank you. On behalf of the next city and the city after that that may experience this kind of invasion, thank you. We got to hold rock solid. We cannot back down. Our cities, our mayors are what will hold this democracy together. Thank you so much.
You just listened to live remarks by Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey speaking there in Washington, D.C. at a mayor's conference in which he was very outspoken in asking and saying why he believes that the operation of immigration enforcement needs to end there in Minneapolis, saying that he rejects the notion that might makes right, which has been something that has been tagged to the Trump administration and some of its officials and their leanings and philosophy here as of late. So he is clearly against what is going on in his own city, but in the meantime, in the backdrop, we just told you and we're sharing the conversation has taken place, has begun between Border Czar Tom Homan with Frey, with Governor Tim Walz, and some more negotiation still has to take place there, according to Homan, on them reaching an understanding on how they can move forward in Minnesota. We're going to go to a quick break. We'll be right back with more Live Impact News. Thanks for sticking with us here for Live Impact News. You know, we've been talking a lot about some of the developments happening in Washington, D.C., connected to what we've seen unfold in Minneapolis. Now we want to turn our attention to a major trial that has caught a lot of people's attention out of Fairfax County. We're talking about the au pair trial. This is Brendan Banfield, the IRS agent who was on trial for murder, accused of killing his wife and another man as part of a elaborate plot to continue his affair with their live-in au pair, who has already pleaded guilty to a lesser charge in exchange to testify against Banfield. Now, earlier today, we heard Banfield, who took the stand, being questioned by the defense. Well, we recorded some of that in which he details some of the moments in which he says he found his wife being stabbed by this man, Joseph Ryan, who prosecutors say Banfield and the au pair lured to his home using a adult website impersonating his wife. Now, we're going to play Banfield's side of the events. Again, he's being questioned in this clip by the defense, and we know that they are currently in recess. Last check, he was being questioned by prosecutors. But here's Banfield in his own words about what happened that day.
What was going on with 911?
She seemed to be, after she shot, she seemed to be stunned and just standing there, not doing anything. And I yelled at her to call 911 again.
And do you know if she followed your advice?
At that point, she seemed to come out of her trance, and I know that she started working on her phone.
Now, why didn't you call 911?
I had a significant amount of blood on my hands, and I was trying to help Christine. And also, we're trained that if there's others around, if you can have them call 911 or assist you, that is something that you would instruct them to do.
So, from inside the room, please describe for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how that 911 came, how you came to be talking on the 911 call.
Juliana seemed to be pacing, kind of in front of the TV area of the bedroom and kind of moving towards the master bedroom door. She called 911, but when she called, she really wasn't saying anything. She was kind of stumbling over her words.
And so, what, if anything, did you do?
I heard that she was on the call with 911. And I could hear the 911 operator asking questions, and so I answered the questions, of my home location and I guess briefly what had happened.
And what did you say?
I believe I said that there was a man that had stabbed my wife, and that I had shot him. And I identified myself as an officer, gave my address. Yeah.
Okay. And at that point, were you still rendering aid to Christine?
Yes, we had spoke slightly more also during that time. She was coughing, and blood had come out of her mouth. And so I knew that that's possible for people to choke on blood, and so I told her I was going to roll her on her side, and she did, and so we did, and so I did that, and she seemed to know that that was also the right thing to do.
Okay. And so she was able to help you roll her over?
Yeah, so I rolled, so I guess it would be kind of slightly away from me, slightly more towards the master bathroom door, and further away from the bed.
Now, in the time frame that we've just talked about, did you ever get a point where you had a better idea of the wounds that were on Christine's neck?
After Juliana shot, and I went back to Christine. Once again, I put my hand on her hand, but she slid her hand from underneath mine and put it on top of mine, and actually my finger went inside of her neck, and that made me realize how badly she was hurt.
Now, with regard to when the hands were removed off of the neck, was there any indication as to how badly she was hurt in terms of anything?
I'm sorry, could you say it again?
In terms of, once you took your hands off of her neck, did that give you any indication of the extent of the wounds?
Yeah, I could see I saw the length of the wound, and the fact that part of my finger actually went inside of hers before I quickly moved my hand out.
Were you able to, and so were you able to continue compression?
I did try. I would say that both of us continued to try compression. Probably also just before she rolled over, I realized that she was holding her hand on the other side of her neck too. I didn't notice that previously.
And so what side of the neck are you talking about now?
I was helping her with the right side of her neck, and she had her left hand on her left side of her neck.
Okay, so she was tending to herself on the left side of the neck?
Yeah, I didn't notice that originally.
Okay, did you assist her then at that point?
I did not put my other hand around her. I did not put my other hand around her at that point. It was, I don't know. I guess we were focused. I was talking to her, and I guess I was a little bit more focused on that.
Okay. And in talking to her, did she assist you in any, in terms of how you could help her?
Basically, she had indicated that she had told me that she, in her words and with her hands, that she wanted more pressure. After my finger had gone into her neck, I guess I tried to close my hand a little bit around the skin to try to, try to close the wound as much as possible, but it didn't seem to be doing anything.
Okay, and in terms of the blood, when you took your hand off of her wound, what did you see? In the beginning, you could see that
the blood was like, I guess, partially shooting out, and it was going through her fingers. But later on, that wasn't what was happening any longer.
Okay. And what, if anything, did you observe, and what did you do?
I mean, this was back to putting pressure and covering the wound. And
now, did there come a time when the first responders arrived?
yes, after some time, the first responders arrived. I know that Juliana left the room at some point, and I know that I heard her go down the stairs. I think that 911 had instructed her to open the door. At a different point on the 911 call, the 911 operator advised to get towels. And Juliana, this was before opening the door. Juliana went into the master bathroom and came back with towels also.
Now, had you been using anything when the 911 operator suggested towels, clean towels, things like that?
So I guess originally I guess I stopped doing pressure when the 911 operator recommended to use towels. And at that point, I grabbed the comforter that was kind of all around me, and I used the comforter, part of the comforter on her neck for a little bit.
Okay. And did there come a time where you moved to something different, or what
When Juliana gave me the towels, I kind of tossed the comforter behind me and used a towel.
Okay. Now, what, if anything, did you do after that?
I know that there was a point that I rechecked Christine's pulse, so I had to remove the towel, and I saw that it wasn't really as covered in blood anymore, and the pulse was significantly weaker, and I checked her pulse with my hand. Her pulse, she still had a pulse, but it felt slow and weak compared to when I had my hand previously.
Now, if you can, and do you have any idea, or can you give the ladies and gentlemen of the jury any indication as to, from the time you shot Joe Ryan to the time the first responders arrived, how long that was?
It's hard. It's very difficult to say. It felt like an extremely long time. I don't know. You're not really thinking about how long it really takes, but the wait on the 911 call felt like it was forever.
After you testified, you stood up after Juliana shot Joe Ryan?
Yeah.
Was there any time between the moment you went back to Christine and the time the first responders arrived that you weren't next to Christine?
After I stood up, I spent the rest of my time kneeling next to Christine, and I did not get up from next to Christine until first responders arrived and instructed me that they were going to take over.
Okay. Well, let's go to that point. What was the first thing that you realized that the police were there, or fire, or whomever?
I know that I heard Juliana yelling to come up here. And I heard many footsteps and people arriving.
Okay, that's a recorded moments there of Brendan Banfield taking the stand in his own murder trial. That was just earlier today. They have come back from recess, from lunch. We will go live on the back end of this, but I want to just fill you in on a few things here before we take this break. Earlier, he testified as he was being asked by the defense that he had heard the sounds of individuals having sex in the home coming from upstairs in his house when he walked in. And at some point, he says that those sounds changed. He talked about the moments that he found his wife, he says, being stabbed by Joseph Ryan, the man who prosecutors say was lured into their home, a part of this whole ordeal and plot, and says that he saw his wife. He used his own service weapon, firing a shot, and then began to tend to his wife, who was giving him instructions, he says, because she was an ICU nurse, on how to tend to her. But after that, at some point, the au pair came into the room and fired a separate weapon at Ryan. And Ryan is saying that that is ultimately what led to his death. Now, what was interesting when cross-examination began earlier today, the prosecution asked him straight up before they went into lunch how the au pair knew the code to get his gun. How Juliana, that's the name of the au pair, knew the code for the gun safe at the Banfield's home. And he said that she realized it was the same code as the door when I was putting away my gear during the day. That's what he testified, which a prosecutor responded and said, so your gun safe is the same as the door code to your house that your child, wife, and babysitter have access to. So a lot of things have taken place here today within the back and forth. We're going to take a quick break and see if we can go to that trial again live on the other side of this commercial break. Welcome back here to Live Impact News. Okay, let's go back live. This is in Fairfax County for the Brendan Banfield O'Hare double murder trial. There he is right there. He is now off of the witness stand after spending the last 2 days testifying in his own trial. Let's see if we can take a listen to where they are right now in the proceedings.
He just responded one moment. So. All right. Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. All right, just a reminder that you're still under oath, okay, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, Mr. Barrero. This is John Carroll.
Hi, John.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I'm going to try to start where we left off on the previous testimony. I believe we were talking about your methodology.
Yes, sir.
Now, you reference in your methodology critical listening, waveform, and spectrographic analysis.
Yes, sir.
Can you please explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what that is?
Yes, so critical listening is just a detailed, repeated auditory review of the evidence. It's using high-quality professional headphones on a forensic workstation and just reviewing the evidence in as detailed a way as possible with the ears. And that normally goes hand in hand with the waveform and spectrographic analysis, which is the visual representation on the screen of the audio that we are hearing through the ears. And the waveform is the squiggly line that everybody's familiar with. The spectrogram includes the frequency or the pitch, the individual frequencies that are present in the file, instead of just the amplitude of the sound wave in the waveform. You get the amplitude, you get the frequency or pitch also contained within the spectrogram.
And what does a spectrogram show us that our ears might miss?
So the spectrogram separates the sound into its frequency components. And so we'll see the individual frequencies that make up the sound. It's like deconstructing a symphony. You can see the individual instruments as opposed to just the sound altogether. So it really allows us to see through noise and overlapping sounds, and allows us to see audio details that otherwise you wouldn't necessarily be able to hear just with the ears. And it provides an objective measurement to use when we're analyzing an audio recording.
And sir, in your analysis, you discuss fundamental frequency and formants. What are those?
The fundamental frequency is the lowest frequency of a sound. Typically, if we're talking about a vocal sound or a musical sound, the fundamental frequency is what we would consider the pitch of that sound. It's symbolized as F0. It's the lowest formant on the spectrogram, and the formants that accompany that, they're the overtones. They're the resonant frequencies above the fundamental frequency that really gives the whatever the sound is, gives the voice or the instrument the unique sound, because those formants are created. They are a reflection of the unique shape and physical characteristics of the vocal tract or the instrument itself that created the sound. So the reason you can hear the difference between a piano playing middle C or a saxophone playing middle C, they're both playing the exact same pitch, right? Middle C is a defined pitch, but it's the overtones, or in this case, we're talking about the formants that actually give that sound its unique characteristics that allow you to distinguish the difference between a saxophone and a piano, for example.
And sir, you've received 2 audio files as part of your analysis, correct?
I did.
Okay, so there are 2 items in evidence. One is Commonwealth's exhibit number 1, which was the known 911 call. And we also have defense exhibit number 378, otherwise titled Lily 3, original. Have you reviewed both of those? Now, let's just look at the 911 call first. What, if anything, do you do regarding isolating a specific sound?
So for the 911 call, there's a sound after the dispatcher answers, which is really the only sound that I was concerned with. It's a short recording to begin with, but the sound in question is about 1.4 seconds after it's a 1.4 second clip after the dispatcher answers the phone. And so I used that 1.4 second clip for the entirety of my analysis of this tape. I didn't do anything else with, like, when the dispatcher answered the phone or the automated voice that comes on the line.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. That is the continuation of that trial in Fairfax County, Virginia. Brendan Benfield, the man, former IRS agent accused of murdering his wife and another man inside of their home. But we're going to take a quick break. We have more to talk about here on Live Impact News, including the sentencing of a former Illinois deputy in the shooting death of a black woman in Illinois. How many years did a judge give him today? We'll have that on the other side of this break. Okay, thank you for sticking with us here for Live Impact News on 13 News Now Plus. My name's Eugene Daniel, alongside producer Naya Campbell on the other side, who is so great on the ones and twos there with all of the different breaks and things we have to do. I did want to update you on a few things that have happened today. One, big news out of Illinois. A former Illinois sheriff's deputy was sentenced today to 20 years in prison for the deadly shooting of Sonia Massey, a black woman who called 911 for help. This took place just a few years ago. Sean Grayson, now 31 years old, who was convicted in October in the police brutality case, will now spend 20 years in prison for that shooting. He's been in jail since he was charged in that killing back in October. Now, we do have here that he apologized during the sentencing, saying he wished he could bring Massey back and spare her family the pain that he has caused. His attorney, though, had asked for a sentence of 6 years, noting that Grayson had late-stage colon cancer that has spread to his liver and lungs, but a judge did not ultimately grant that decision. Massey's family, meanwhile, who has lobbied for the maximum sentence, said that their lives have obviously changed drastically since this took place. Her two children said they had to grow up without a mother, while Massey's mother said that she also lived in fear with this. And so that's the latest news. That is big news coming out of Illinois there in Sangamon County after that shooting that took place in July of 2024. Massey calling 911. She had struggled with mental health. She had called for emergency responders. She feared that there was a prowler outside of her home in Springfield, and that ultimately led to her death. And so, again, Sean Grayson has been sentenced now to 20 years in prison. The other thing that we want to mention today marks 1 year since that deadly mid-air collision between a passenger plane and a military helicopter in the D.C. area. That taking place near Reagan National Airport. Again, a year ago today, 67 people died. 64 of those people were on board the American Airlines plane that was coming from Wichita, Kansas, and those 3 soldiers who were aboard that helicopter plane. Now, military helicopter. Now, earlier this week, we showed you the moments when the NTSB was holding its final hearing with the findings and to be able to ask more questions into what caused that collision on that night a year ago. We do have a story to kind of bring you up to speed on what happened in that conversation and the questions and concerns now that NTSB has and what now is being done moving forward. If we can go ahead and play that as you look at the video there that was played during that hearing to show what it looked like from the military helicopter's point of view. You can see in the video that we were just showing you, they were trying to display how difficult it would have been for both parties, the pilots of the plane and for those on the helicopter, to be able to see each other that night. One of the things that officials have said did lead to this is that helicopter was flying about 78 I believe feet higher than what it was supposed to be at the moment. But there have already been plenty of concerns levied for years about the air traffic around that airport. Okay, I think we do have that story that is queued up for you. Again, this is to catch you up to speed here 1 year after that deadly mid-air collision.
We should be angry because for years no one listened. This was preventable.
The National Transportation Safety Board chair saying the crash should never have happened.
It's one, I believe, failure after another.
The NTSB saying Tuesday's hearing was not meant to place blame, but to ensure such a tragedy never happens again. The board shared never-before-seen animation depicting the mid-air collision from the point of view of the helicopter pilots. The green shows their view through night vision goggles, while the gray areas represent blind spots in the cockpit.
The local controller stated they were concerned about both the close proximity of PAT 25 to PSA Flight 5342 and their converging courses.
This image from investigators shows where the Black Hawk made contact with the American Airlines jet. Another image shows the chopper after the crash.
Examination of the recovered wreckage indicated that the helicopter's main rotor contacted the underside of the airplane's left wing, resulting in the outboard section of the wing separating in flight.
According to the NTSB, the route at the time of the collision allowed the Black Hawk to fly as close as 75 feet below planes descending to land.
75 feet, at best, separating a helicopter and civilian aircraft. Nowhere in the airspace is that okay.
I'm Sherelle Hubbard reporting.
Okay, you can hear it from them, the concerns that they had. And a part of the alarms that had been sounded for years are coming from senators right here in Virginia, from Senators Mark Warner and Tim Kaine, who had complained and really was trying to warn that there were just too many planes in the air there at Reagan National. And then you add in the military helicopters in the air in that region as well. And so they feared something like this could take place after there was a mere miss between two planes the year prior. Several senators wrote a joint letter to the FAA to make some changes, all of that happening before that crash took place. Today in Wichita, there was a moment in which family members and others within the community, again, that's where that plane started, when it was heading to D.C., to remember the victims of that, many of them young figure skaters, their parents, who were leaving a skating competition there in Wichita. So wanted to make sure that we took note of those, because it's hard to imagine that it's been a year, but those images I think will stand in a lot of people's minds for quite some time, because so many of us fly. And it is certainly a worst nightmare come true for anybody who gets onto a plane. 1 year ago that took place. We want to end our stream today sharing some remarks from Virginia Senator Mark Warner. We actually were able to catch up with him. Our team was able to listen in on his comments about an hour ago. This would have been, I believe, after he voted no to the government spending bill that did not pass today. So we are expecting to hear his thoughts on that. So we're going to listen to as much of it as we can as we wrap up our stream today. This is, again, Democratic Senator Mark Warner. We believe he'll be talking here about his reason for not voting for that government spending bill that did fail 45 to 55 today.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to my regular updates from our capital. Obviously, a lot going on the Hill and around the country. But I want to start with thinking back a year ago, and I'm wearing the pin today for Flight 5342 that crashed, killing 67 individuals into the Potomac. I still remember a year ago when literally driving by National about 10 minutes after the crash took place, and I'd never seen as many red lights, blue lights, yellow lights, all descending on an airport. One of the challenges we live in the DMV is we've got a lot of different jurisdictions, but that night I saw first responders from Maryland, the district, Virginia, from all communities, federal and state, all come together. I was at the airport the next morning as they were still recovering bodies, and obviously we still send our condolences to the lives who were dramatically changed and the victims' families. And I know it is particularly challenging since many of the victims were potential Olympians, many of them skaters, and they would have been heading off to Milan these days if we hadn't had that tragedy. And as we saw from the National Transportation Safety Board report, this accident could have been prevented. And I think we all need to commit ourselves to making sure it never happens again. Now, many of us, Senator Kaine and I and the Maryland senators, have said for a long time you can't keep cramming more flights into D.C. I mean, our regions' airports ought to be governed by safety protocols, not by the whims of Congress. While this particular accident they didn't find anything related to the slots, as you've got the nation's single biggest, busiest runway at National. But there are things that we can correct. We in the Senate have passed already the Rotor Act, a bipartisan piece of legislation that would mandate that a military aircraft, in this case a military helicopter, because this airspace is so crowded around National, would have to have the ADS-B signaling mechanism on. The American flight had that on. The military helicopter a year ago didn't have that on, so they could have communicated better. We've got to do a better job of having more air traffic controllers and more FAA safety personnel. All these would be included in the Rotor Act, and it's long overdue that the House hasn't passed this and got it to the president's desk. I've also got other legislation in place to try to, again, beef up FAA safety protocols. But one of the things that continues to concern me is that even if we pass the Rotor Act, are we going to be able to recruit the kind of quality folks we need at the FAA on safety and the enormously stressful positions that are air traffic controllers? These are federal employees, and when we've got an administration that seems to be on a war against federal employees, you can go back to the OMB director Volker's claim that he wants to terrorize the federal workforce. Well, the federal workforce has been terrorized over the last year. We've seen a lot of loss of good talent. And how do you encourage a young person to go join the federal service, even if the mission is important, when you've got this constant threat, at least from this administration? We got.
Okay, we didn't quite get to him speaking about the potential government shutdown and his vote today, but I will say he posted on social media, said that he voted no because he could not support funding DHS more and giving them more money as we're seeing people dying there in the streets in Minneapolis. But he did talk at length, you heard him there, about the one-year anniversary, remembering those victims of the plane crash at Ronald Reagan National. And we also heard from Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger today about that. Here are her comments that she put out earlier today, saying our hearts remain with the families, friends, and loved ones of the 67 people lost 1 year ago today, saying she joins our entire Commonwealth in thanking the first responders who rushed to the scene. Congress and the FAA must act decisively to make sure this kind of preventable tragedy never happens again, saying that she appreciates the National Transportation Safety Board for their work and their decisive report. We're going to actually end our stream now, though. That's all the time that we have here. Thank you so much for joining us for Live Impact News. On behalf of myself and producer Nia Campbell, who is here, remember you can always not only watch us on YouTube, but you can watch us by downloading our app, 13 News Now Plus. And you will not only be able to watch this, but so much other content that we have here at 13 News Now. We appreciate you. We'll be right back here at 10 o'clock tomorrow.